Welcome, everybody, to the Luv and War Podcast. I'm your co-host, Easy.
I am Cubana Lana.
And we're getting ready to, reunite after the holidays. We've kind of taken a little break, a light vacation for the Thanksgiving holiday. Had the opportunity to spend some time with family, eat a lot of good food. I have a certain thing I like to do. So you know how you go to a bunch of people's houses and you kind of eat at everyone's house. So what I do is I cook my Thanksgiving food on Sunday following Thanksgiving because, leftovers, you can't keep them for forever, right? So what I'll do is I'll go to everybody else's house on Thursday. I'll eat there. Like I'll go to somebody's house for lunch, go to somebody else's house for dinner, bring back leftovers, eat them through the weekend, and then on Sunday is when I make my Thanksgiving dinner so I can have Thanksgiving dinner for the entire next week. So I don't cook on Thursday. I don't let my food sit in the refrigerator and go bad. And because I cook on Sunday and then the work week starts, nobody can come to my house and eat my food. So I got more left over just for me. So just give you a little tip, you know what I'm saying, if you want to work out some longevity with the meals and stuff, do it like that, man. Go eat everybody else's food, all the money, the hard work that they done did, and then cook your stuff on Sunday, and then you can eat whatever you like from Monday to Friday, and you good. So, I don't get tired of the Thanksgiving taste, and the reason why I don't is because Sunday's meal is mine, so it's cooked the way I like it. And so I enjoy it all week. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I've already crowned myself as king of candied yams, or you can use sweet potatoes. I know that, people, get a little nitpicky about whether they're yams or sweet potatoes. They pretty much the same thing. But I make the best candied yams on earth. Like, nobody's messing with me. All right. And for all my Snapchat followers, been following me, y'all see how it goes down. I have a certain technique.
I don't think your Snapchat followers are following you because of your yam recipes. I'll just put that out there.
Man, look, some of them got them yams, all right? All I'm saying is my candy yam recipe is absolutely amazing. It's to die for. In fact, I had someone try them and say that they didn't know whether they were a side for dinner or a dessert. That's how good they are. So, just bring $10 with you, and I got you. You good. They are for sale. I'll be making plates next year, so holla at me the week after Thanksgiving, and $10 a plate. I got you. So how was your Thanksgiving holiday?
I was great. We went to my daughter's grandmother's house, and my daughter actually went the night before and helped her cook, so that was exciting. And they made most of the stuff. Lance, of course, claimed the baked mac and cheese because that's his thing he likes to make.
Okay.
I brought my own food because, of course, nothing I eat.
Because I was going to ask you, was his mac and cheese good? But then I was like, wait a minute, you can't eat cheese because it's dairy. Okay. So you don't even know how it tastes.
I mean, I know based on others' reactions, everybody loved it. So,
okay. All right.
I mean, and this is his second or third year doing it. So
got you.
He has been asked each year to do it again, so it must be delicious.
All right, Lance, if you can, bruh, I need a sample because we might be able to collaborate next Thanksgiving. We can come together, you know what I'm saying, on a Sunday afterwards. We can hook something up. Maybe we can have a little arrangement where, you make the mac and cheese, I make the sweet potatoes, and then we do like a trade-off. You get half, I get half. Yeah. We could work something out.
I dig it. But no, it was good. I brought just a few things for myself. And, really, I mean, the food and everything is great, but it's just nice to be able to disconnect and be with family.
Yeah.
We're big on that. I mean, you've seen us in our, big dorky pictures, our matching Christmas outfits and all that stuff. So, that's where we just thrive as, a tribe.
I feel it. I feel it.
But it was great.
I ended my my night with the White family.
Yeah.
Brian White, the White family. All right. The Whites. Shouts out to the White family. They are the owners of Two Scoops Ice Cream Eatery in St. Paul on Selby and Milton. Come check them out. But I spent the evening with them. And so I would say the highlight of my Thanksgiving was not the food. It was the fact that I haven't played Madden since early PS4 years. I want to say Brian White III was probably about 2 years old. He's 13 now. So I ain't played Madden in 11 years, and I ran through the whole house.
Oh,
You'd have thought that I've been playing, for the whole last decade. I had his kids in there crying. They was quitting, going down the basement, talking about they about to play Call of Duty. You know, they daddy, he swear he good, but I've been beating him since he was like 14 years old, 13 years old. I beat him so bad, he laid on the couch and went to sleep. It was 2 a.m. I'm just whooping all the kids, blowing everybody out. So I just put all the kids to bed, told Brian, you know, hey, man, I'm going to tuck you in real quick, put a little blanket on him. Put him to bed, man, went to the house, man. So I left the white family household champion. That's what they call me from now on. I'm no longer easy. I'm Madden champion. Matter of fact, that's going to be my gamer tag. You can get beat, too. I don't know if you play Madden, but all y'all can get blowed out.
You don't want no smoke. Dimitar 300. You'll remember that name,
hey,
player.
Man, they call me champion.
All right.
With
sounds
accent
good.
over the O.
I'm going to chop you up like some onions. You don't want these problems. And don't let me use the Vikings, too. I'm going to be gritty and all over you.
Man, look, man, I'm a Niner
Kirk
fan.
Cousins isn't even that good.
Man, look, I was whooping on people.
I forgot. So you hurt right now, huh?
Nah, I ain't hurt.
Jimmy G broke his, or he hurt himself or something, right? He broke his ankle or something like that.
You know, for whatever reason, the Niners been trying to get rid of Jimmy G. Even though all he does is win, they've been trying to get rid of him for the last 3 years.
I don't know about all that, sir.
It'll be what it is.
You better hope Christian McCaffrey can throw football.
Man, look, we gonna be all right. We got the Minnesota boy Trey Lance.
Nah, he broke his ankle. I think Lance broke his ankle a while ago.
He ain't back though.
No, that's why they couldn't get rid of Jimmy G. Is because Lance hurt him. Lance is hurt.
Oh, I thought he was back.
Yeah, now Jimmy G hurt. So y'all finna put y'all punter in there or something. We were saying they might go pick up Kaepernick or something.
Man, we put Debo back there.
Debo and Christian.
Debo
can do it all.
Yeah, Debo play it all.
Nah,
man.
he better not go get a
receiver,
quarterback. They ain't gonna try to pay him if he gets quarterback.
He'll clean your pool and paint your back porch, man. He Boobie Miles, man. You know, it's all good, man. It's all good. Sorry for the football talk. This is not a sports show. But
I was over here like, y'all getting a little deep in here, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Thanksgiving and football go hand in hand. I'm sorry.
For
so
you,
we got
I watch football on Thanksgiving.
Man, look, it's American tradition. My bad. You know, I kind of, all right, Love and War. We back. I'm sorry. This is not the sports talk. What's our sports talk show with House of Kings? What is it? Hash it out with Horn. I'm going to jump on Hash It Out with Horn and talk about my Madden skills and my 49ers. I'll save that for the other podcast. Shouts out to Brandon. Shouts out to Hash It Out with Horn, man. Make sure y'all tune in with him. House of Kings Studios. Let's get back to love and relationships and all the toxic stuff that Lana likes to participate in.
Excuse me, toxicity is in your world. I'm the voice of reason and diplomacy.
Toxic. Toxicity is my middle name.
Yeah, we know. Hence the tales of easy. Didn't we have a taste of that yesterday when we were sitting there having our conversation at Billy's?
You know what?
Talking about some of the shenanigans.
You know what? I'm not even gonna get too personal on this podcast. Why? Because you
gotta follow him on Snapchat to get the details.
We are not about to turn this into a reality TV show. These people actually watch the podcast.
I'm sure they do.
I ain't about to get myself into no more drama, man.
Hey, Lana, what happened?
Oh gosh.
What happened?
Let us just say that St. Paul is very small.
Tales from the East.
And people tend to just congregate in the same places. And it's weird the way people react when they come across each other.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I just, I feel like we have hundreds, if not thousands of people that will tune into this podcast, right? At this point, our group has well over 1,000 people. We get hundreds of views on various platforms.
Yes.
You know who I am if you're from St. Paul, pretty much. I'm a pretty well-known person. You know what I'm saying? Kibana over here, she's pretty well-known in the St. Paul community. Her and I should be able to go out and be seen in public, and it should not be a problem.
Legit.
I should not get a text message from somebody that I am not in a relationship with that reads, "Say hi to your girl for me." Or I heard you were at the bar with some woman, especially when she goes out of her way to make a promotional video. Shouts out to Billy's, because that's where we went last night. Mm-hmm. Promoing that we're going to Billy's, representing the podcast, to engage with the community and talk to people about our podcast. But somehow I still get text messages like, "Oh, so you at the bar with some
girl." This is why when he and I go out, I feel like I almost have to release a disclaimer like, "Ladies, Leo is single. I am the wingman. Like, I'm here to support you."
You guys need shirts. You guys need
I
shirts.
think that's actually not a bad idea. I think maybe we should
Captain Wingman.
Yes. Yep.
So what was really funny was, so we had a great time, by the way.
Yes.
Shout out Billy's on
We're going to kind of glaze over the the drama.
But you had a great time at Billy's though. It's
We
always
did.
a great time.
We
when you
did.
go
We had
to
a great
Billy's.
time. I want
All right, tell us about that.
I want to glaze over the drama piece because it wasn't all bad, but it did kind of carry over into today. Had to kind of nip some stuff in the bud and possibly even terminate a friendship. But we ain't gonna go that far. Hopefully, yeah. Damage control. But I after Lana left, I texted her and I said, women came up to me and acknowledged us and said, hey, you're the podcast. That's the Love and War girl. Like they were saying. But our intention was to talk to people at the bar. But while we were there, while we were together, the dynamic of us being together, people treated us as if like we were a couple and we were on a date. And so no one really approached us other than like our close friends.
Right.
Yeah.
But after she left, I literally had 3 different women then come speak to me. And it was like, well, the whole point
Ladies,
was.
you can come and talk to him when I'm sitting there. I promise I am not offended. Come and have the conversation. You don't have to wait until I go.
And even if we were in a relationship, like it still doesn't have to be weird. Like
No.
if I'm in a relationship and I'm out with somebody and you know me, you can still come
and
speak to me
speak.
and say hi and man, you guys are doing a great job or like
Right.
whatever. Like it shouldn't be weird to the point to be like, oh, there they go. And then when she leaves, hey, aren't you the football coach? Ain't that the podcast girl? Like,
Yes. That's what I'm going to put on my T-shirts is the podcast.
the
girl.
podcast
The
girl.
podcast girl.
And I think that part of that is too, I got to acknowledge the fact that I am a repeat offender on Facebook. And so I am just constantly being thrown in Facebook jail. And so I do feel like you are the face of the brand right now because I have so little presence in the group. So it's like, oh, you're the football coach. Oh, yeah, she's the girl with the podcast. I'm like, dang, I ain't even in the podcast no more.
You the guest.
I'm not able to produce no content. Like, it's tight on me right now.
I've been telling you to make a burner.
I know. I got to.
You know what you should do?
I gotta grow
Start
my second
recording
page.
like reels and send them to me, and then I can post
them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll if he would just stay out of Facebook jail. Yeah. Literally, you have been in Facebook jail more than you have not been since we've started the podcast.
Like 3 out of the last 4 months.
Lana, what's his punishment? You guys got to come up with y'all's
I tell
punishments.
him like he's gonna have to find me like dinner or something, like some crazy,
Dinner?
really good vegan dinner
I
or
mean,
something.
it really, like, I don't even remember what I did this time.
I will say that
It
the
was the
last
throat-
time
it was-
I didn't understand.
Oh,
why.
yeah. I was talking about chopping my kids in the throat. Yeah.
Which
Yeah, but no, it was the way that I worded it. I said, because someone posted, they said, do you tell your kids you love them every day? And I responded to the post and I said,
jokingly.
Yeah, and I responded to the post all the time in between making empty threats to chop them in the throat. That's exactly what I wrote. And it was like,
speech or violence,
inciting violence against children. Women are better cheaters. I got labeled misogyny. Like anytime I write anything that's remotely questionable, the little bots of the algorithm just be like, get them out of here.
But
Well,
I
stop
think once
saying
you
it on the
become
podcast.
like on their list, they're more scrutinous
Yeah.
of what you're posting. I think
Yeah.
maybe that's the
Yeah,
case.
you're a Facebook felon.
So what I did was I looked back in my history to see the very first time I ever went to Facebook
Facebook
jail, and it was because I shared a meme, a cartoon that someone like one of those like comic kind of drawings of Donald Trump drinking bleach. Remember when he was like
Tell
when he
everybody to do
went
that.
on national
And he's
TV,
like,
he said if we could put Clorox bleach in our body to kill the virus, and that
Then
went
people
viral.
started drinking bleach.
And
but
so
really, is that like okay?
I guess, but they're saying if you share that kind of information, that there are people who might try it. Because what about Gorilla Glue hair girl,
Where
right?
have
There
we
are
come
some
as a
people
society where we have to tell people we're not actually telling you to do that.
drink bleach.
We don't do that.
Well, a girl put Gorilla Glue in her hair like it was super hold gel. So there are some people out here dumb enough to do that stuff.
That's why they got to put warnings on everything.
But did I need
crazy.
to start my
That's what
career
started it.
as being a Facebook offender off of that? For hitting the share button. So now it's like anytime anything is questionable, like Mark Zuckerberg just on my heels, bro. Like I don't rock with you, fam.
and you're done. 30 days. There you go.
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna have to like create a second account or something. So if y'all see something that's remotely like my page,
It's him. He has not been
it's
hacked.
me. It's not a catfish page. Don't nobody want to catfish me no more.
Also, disclaimer, I have been working to add like more of a female presence to my Facebook page. And I know that like you got some like kickback where they're like, hey, that girl that you know is like friending me.
Oh, Lord.
Is this some weird? It's not. I happen to have like a predominantly male following, and I would like to have more opinions on the female side.
Why we gotta tell all my business on the podcast?
She said, example A, example B.
Well, I just
It's a
don't- I
true
don't
story
want
though.
people
I got
thinking-
inbox like, is this one of your crazy exes?
I mean,
No.
But
No.
you got to give it to the person who asked that question. There
Well, do
seems
your
like
due
there's a
diligence,
certain
be
track
safe.
record with crazy
and I
exes.
only add people with like a magnitude of mutual friends. Like if we have like at least 50 to 70 like mutual friends, then I'll hit the add button, and it's
Right.
literally just to add more female presence to my page because I feel like I do end up getting.
because you're overwhelmed with the guys that want to send you the eggplant pictures.
And
Yeah.
please,
Let's talk about you.
please understand. If you send anything like that to me, I'm immediately blocking you.
Yeah.
I don't.
better
I'm not,
report
and I'm
them,
not
too.
gonna, I'm not gonna mention any apps where I can receive money. I'm just saying that she still has guys making cash offers. So that's all I'll say. You know.
And mutual
Inbox
friends
me.
of ours trying
Come on,
to
bro.
convince me that that's like a
it
lucrative
out.
side hustle. It's
You
wild.
better not get us booted.
La, la, la.
Yeah. No.
White noise.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, let's get into the topics. We done talking because I mean we supposed to do the That's Just Toxic segment, and somehow I became the That's Just Toxic segment. Shouts out to Billy's,
That's
had a great
because I'm
time.
not toxic.
Lemon pepper wings were fire. Shouts out to Jermaine Court for being a wonderful host. He
Yes.
gave our podcast like 3
Shout
shout outs,
out,
live
yes.
mentions over the microphone. DJ Inferno, man, he was killing it. He was playing all the music. She was in there trying to download every song. She was in
Google.
there, yeah.
Google, Shazam.
That's what I was
She was
trying
trying,
to.
but in the club it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
They
know,
were playing
music's-
some hits. And I'm
yeah.
like, dang, I wish I could have the DJ's playlist. It
Right,
was
right.
So good.
So shouts out to everybody over there. Shouts out to the people who did come and speak to us and acknowledge us.
Yes,
We really
much
appreciate it.
appreciated.
Yeah,
We're
definitely.
going to have to link up and collab with Billy Young Grand one of these days.
We're gonna have to,
Yeah.
man. We're gonna have to. I don't know if Wes is following us yet, but we definitely need to add Wes to the group. You know,
It's a great venue and it's huge.
It
Like
is.
if anybody has events and things coming up, that's an incredible place to consider.
Yep. They actually have like that private party room. Have you been in there? They got
Yeah.
that private party room, man. We might even want to do a pod, in
From
there.
there.
Yeah,
Live
from
yeah.
Billy's.
We could set that up, man. We could get like a taco bar.
Definitely.
Something like that, get that going. But
Yeah.
so appreciate the hospitality. And I'll probably, if people want to check it out, I'll probably be going there for New Year's Eve to party with them on that Saturday as well.
Oh, that's perfect too, because you don't have to go like way far out and you can just Uber.
Exactly.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds much better.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so let's get into the topics of discussion now that we're done with the Easy So Toxic segment. All right, what do we got for today?
So the first portion of the conversation was based on a conversation you and I were having about wanting a traditional partner, but not necessarily being a traditional person.
Well, define a traditional person. Like,
Okay.
what does that mean?
So like,
Because I feel I'm traditional. What does it mean to be
so
traditional?
like, I find these conversations where you'll hear women who want men who can provide for them, and you know what I mean, and be like that. I guess like super alpha male, right? Like they get to be stay-at-home moms, they're protected, kind of all these other things. But then sometimes the women that are asking to have those types of partners are not necessarily what would be the traditional women in that role. Like, you know, they're not like big cookers or cleaners and, you know, not necessarily interested in child rearing. So they want like this very traditional man, but they're not the traditional partner. And then also on the reverse side, you have men who want these super traditional women who cook, clean, you know, like run households, but they still want them to work because they financially cannot be the sole provider for that relationship.
Right.
And so I think the conversation often follows. It's like, well, the people asking for those type of partners they don't even fall in line with the type of people who could maintain those partners.
Like they're not traditional themselves.
Exactly.
And I think one of the buzzwords right now, or one of the trending topics, a word that comes to my mind is like submissive.
Yes.
That keeps coming up. Submissive woman, submissive woman.
And
what does it mean to be submissive?
Yes.
So like when I think about the word submissive, one of the things that I think of is a person who kind of like falls in line. Not necessarily that you're being punked or told what to do, but you allow someone to lead and you kind of go with their plan. You're submitting to them, right?
And it doesn't mean you get no consideration. It doesn't mean that like your opinion is not valued and you're not even asked.
Right.
But it just means that that person, because typically they've shown you that there's someone worthy of leadership, is entrusted with like the final decision making.
Right. Like in a business structure, whoever the leader is going to have the final say.
Yeah, you can present evidence for your...
If you disagree with their final decision, you have like two options. You could just suck it up, deal with it, or you can find another job.
Yeah.
And so in a relationship, if one person is going to be the submissive one, they have to then just entrust in that person to say, you know what, even in this moment where I'm kind of like, I don't know if you got the best decision, but I'm going to fall in line and let's just see if your idea works out. So I know that that's a word that comes up with, you know, what it means to be a traditional woman, but I'll play the other side. I'll be devil's advocate, you know, looking for a traditional man. Is every man a leader? Does every man have like leadership capabilities?
Exactly.
So when you're looking for somebody to submit to you, but you have poor leadership skills.
Why do you expect them to submit?
Right. Because leadership requires trust.
Yeah.
Requires integrity.
Yes.
It requires hard work, you know, commitment, seeing things through.
Yep.
And not every man is capable of doing those things. We got to be honest.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why, and I find a lot of times that it is men on the one side and women on the other who don't have those qualities that want those kind of relationships. And like you and I had this conversation in the past about you kind of have to become the partner that you want, right?
Right.
So, and also what I'd like to say too is that that idea of submission, it comes in different places, right? So like you might submit to your husband when it comes to like certain things within your household and your relationship, but he might submit to you, like, let's say you're the one who's in charge of like finances. So then he's going to entrust you to do all the finances.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that there's different places. Like if your partner is your protector, then if he says, hey, I don't necessarily want you going here dressed like that, you're going to be like, well, you have my best interest, or you've proven that you're here to keep me safe. So I'm going to assume that you're telling me this for my own safety.
You bring up finances, and I've heard, and again, I'm going to speak from, you know, outside perspective looking in, because I know that one critique is that somebody might say, well, you're not married, so how can you speak on these qualities? Or you're not even in a relationship, so how can you give advice? So I'm going to speak from a perspective like listening to married couples. I have married friends and married like elders and mentors, men who will say, she takes care of the money. So I got a older guy that I look up to. He wanted a new car. But he couldn't get a new car until his wife told him that he could get a new car. Not that it was that he wasn't working for it, he didn't have the money. But he trusted that she was financially responsible enough to tell him when he had the green light. So it wasn't that she was telling him what he couldn't do. She was just telling him when it was time. Like, okay, now we got the money. Now it's a wise decision. We've paid off this loan. Go ahead, you know, and now you can make that purchase. So it's still, there's still compromise and there's still teamwork. Because even on like sports teams, like you're going to have captains. But that doesn't mean that the captain necessarily tells everybody what to do. They're not out there just punking people.
Like people come with different skill sets. Like for instance, if there's a skill that I don't have, or if there's something that I'm less knowledgeable than you are, I'm going to entrust that decision to you. Because I don't necessarily have the skill set to be able to make a good educated decision, and vice versa. Like to finances, for instance, in my previous longest relationship, I handled all the finances. And the way that it happened is if he was like, hey, I want to go on a trip, he'd just tell me 6 months in advance, and I would build an account
out the money
to say, okay, cool. How much do you think that you need? All right, awesome. And then I would just put away enough money so that we had the money to buy the ticket. He had the spending money. He had what he needed. And it wasn't an argument or a conversation. Because again, it's not like a, no, you can't. It's like, okay, well, let's figure this out.
Let me help you get there, because I'm your teammate.
Exactly.
Let's go back, since we talked about submission a little bit, let's go back to the word tradition, because tradition typically means like something of the past, like something that's historical.
Yep.
When we're talking about, and I'll start out with what a traditional man looks like. Providing.
Yep.
Now, that was a conversation I kind of went into on Snapchat. We won't get into the full-fledged like 50-50 conversation because that's coming. But what it means to provide and protect in today's society, I do think looks different than what it looked like traditionally.
And is it even feasible to do it that way now?
To do things in the traditional manner, right? So when we look at the traditional man, we go like, historically, there was a time when we weren't civilized, right? Like there were wars. A tribe could come into, another territory and just take and rape the women.
Yeah.
So the traditional men were there literally to protect the women, with their lives, like fighting off other groups of people, because the way to win a war, which a lot of people don't acknowledge, historically was to take their women. That was a strategy, and impregnate them
because it makes them loyal to the new regime.
Those women have to then become the wives or the mothers of these new men in their area that becomes their children, so it becomes their offspring.
And women protect their children.
You have to protect their children. And so it's like, you can either have my child, I'm going to rape you, or I'm going to kill you, right? We can wipe you out and desolate this area.
They'd also use it as a bargaining chip to allow their other children to live.
Absolutely.
They'd say, I'm going to either murder you and your children, or you will have a baby by me and become my wife.
So that's where, like, protector comes from.
Yes.
In today's society, with civilization, police, like,
I think the protection is still there, but it's very different.
It looks different, right? It looks different. But when we use those words and we're talking historically, that's where when men used to protect their families or protect their villages, now that it just looks different. Now we say that the military protects us, or we say that the police protect us. But us woke people are starting to understand that the military is really not protecting us. They're fighting in foreign wars. Like, they're not out here on street corners protecting us from other countries trying to invade, or police aren't even necessarily protecting. They're more like responders. You call them and say you got an emergency, but they're not sitting outside making sure that you're safe on the way to your car. Yeah. So what does protection look like in today's society is just different. I think it's more like an ideology. It's just a way people think, like, I'm going to protect my woman. It's more of like a bravado way you carry yourself. Like, this woman, she's with me. She's mine. She's good.
Well, it's provided, like, I'll speak from a women's perspective. Like, when I think of having a partner who makes me feel protected, it's kind of, to your point, those types of things, like walking me to my car. You know what I mean? Like, watching as I walk into a building, making sure I get in the right way. You know what I mean? Like, being the first to go into a house or a new place, sitting by the door when we're at a restaurant, or facing the door so you can see it. Like, those are small mannerisms that I think today's woman appreciates, as like feeling safe and secure, making sure I'm walking on the right side of the street, holding my hand so I feel like we're secure in public. Like, I think today's safety is more so like small mannerisms versus like the big shows of bravado.
Making you feel safe.
Yes.
Making you feel safe. Yes. Even though there's not necessarily a battle to be won.
Yes.
You know. And yes, I mean, your house could possibly get broken into, but let's be real, like,
women are packing now.
You might have a heat and your man might be hiding in the closet. Baby, what's that? Get the gun. Like, you know, and shame on those guys, but those men do exist. Like, every guy is not necessarily brave. You know, every guy is not strong. Every guy can't fight. So
there's an interesting perspective to that, though. Is it because it's no longer required?
That's true. We're not necessarily raising young soldiers or young warriors either.
We're not. And I think that there's pros and cons to that. But
so are we even raising traditional men then?
Well,
I mean, in society, is it even necessary to raise a traditional man? Like, do you really have to raise your son to be a fighter and a protector in today's society? Is that even necessary today?
Is it expected? And the truth of the matter is I don't think it is as much.
Yeah. And even if you do raise your son to be this protector, he'd mess around and protect your butt and get shot.
Legit.
Because, you done taught your kid to fight and you got him doing push-ups his whole young life and he's swole and maybe kids are scared of him in the neighborhood when he's 12. By the time he's 18, somebody pulling a gun on him because we all know you can knock people out. So he's like, you know what? I'm not even fighting you.
Yeah, I'm just,
yeah.
Well, and I also think like that goes back to the conversation of like a nuclear family as well. Like we live in a very different society when it comes to what makes up families today. Like often you're raised in two separate households. Maybe you're raised by both parents, maybe you're not. So I think that changes the dynamic as well of how our adolescents are raised.
And you bring up a good point. What if many boys are being raised by women that protect them?
Exactly.
So like, how does that shape their thought process about what it means to be a protector as a male? Like, is that necessarily the sole responsibility of a man? You know,
all you've ever seen is a woman do it.
If your mom has protected you. And I'll talk about my personal experience working in schools. We got the mama bears, right? We got a ton of single moms in inner city communities that come to school ready to fight for their son.
Yes.
And me being a boy who was raised by a father, I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the middle of situations trying to diffuse fights.
Yeah.
And I've seen some boys do some things that I wouldn't consider to be very masculine during these times of conflict. Next thing I know, a mom pulls up and jumps out the car. And I'm like, which one of you dudes called your mom up here to fight? These middle school boys, 13, 14. And somebody done called their mama. Mama, they trying to jump. And the mom gets out trying to square up with boys. And I'm like, but to them, they've been raised that their mother is their protector.
Yeah.
So then, if that boy then grows up to be a man, is he necessarily thinking he's supposed to be a protector, or is his girlfriend supposed to protect him? Because that's all he's ever known.
And as a mother of a boy, I'll say it right now, and I'll say it with just the truth. If my baby calls me and he's like, Mom, like there's like these 5 boys that are trying to do, if you don't think that I'm going to show up with Timberlands and my hair in a ponytail, then you've got the wrong one.
And me being the traditional man, I'm like, man, you better let him take his L. Because me back in my day,
you're jumping my daughter.
Call your friends. You better get you some homies.
Hopefully
Look,
so.
when I was coming up, I got into a fight. I came home. My parents wasn't responding. You know, my dad told me, he's like, man, you better fight him tomorrow. This time, just don't do it at school. My dad told me straight up. He's like, if you're going to fight, just don't do it at school.
Do it outside.
But I was so dumb that I waited till after school and I literally fought right outside the door. Because I was like, in my mind, I was like, my dad told me to just fight after school. I didn't know he meant like down the block or like get on the bus and right. Yes. Nah, I walked out the door, turned around, the teacher's escorting this boy out the door, walking him to the bus. I'm like, what's up then? What's up then? You know, but yeah, my dad was never going to come up there and fight for me. And he was definitely not going to allow my mom to come up there and fight for me. But I get the mama bear attitude of like protecting their children. Whereas men will be like, boy, you better, knuckle up. That's
where the balance comes in. And like, I'm not going to say that that's the right reaction, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, that's absolutely how I should handle it. Because I agree to your point that you do have to allow, especially our young men, to stand on their own in circumstances. So I don't necessarily think that I'm right to be like, nope, I got you. Like, I'm coming.
Let me ask you this. If you called your son's father and you told him about the situation and you told him you were going to go up there.
He would tell me to go sit down.
Exactly.
He would tell me to go sit down. And again, I don't necessarily think that he would be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Yeah. And I know, bro, he got hands. I grew up with him. You know what I'm saying? We grew up playing tackle football in the street. We from the pavement, for real.
And I was like, listen, these kids are trying to like jump our son. He'd be like, okay, cool. Where are they?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have to get involved.
Right.
But I have the benefit of that to where I have 2 very active fathers for my children.
That's real. That's real.
My children don't necessarily just have to call mom and come do it.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I will say it this way. My daughters often do not necessarily want to call me because they know what my reaction is going to be.
They know you're going to show up.
They know that I'm going to come and go hard.
They don't even want to be embarrassed. They're like I'd rather just fight the fight on my own than have my mama pull up.
Come up here and go off. So like they will often call their father instead to be like, he'll at least keep his temper. Whereas I'm like, I am with it at any given time.
What's up, Rico? You done grabbed the mic. I feel like you got something to say on this topic. Don't tell me that Bernie fought one of your fights for you now.
Nah, she definitely didn't do that. Bernie
didn't tie up her hair in a ponytail.
Nah, she was on that. You better don't
Figure
do
it
it at
out.
school. You better go outside. It better not be in my yard, and you better not come back until you win. Type stuff.
Yeah, and I don't want to sidetrack off the topic too far because we talking about tradition. But what I do dislike, I don't want to say hate. What I do dislike about this generation is that kids won't fight anymore. You know, now you do kind of got to protect your kids.
The art of that.
You got to diffuse situations
Don't get shot.
I've already had to have my first conversation with my son about stop getting into it at the basketball court because he played travel basketball. He's a hooper, you know,
People take it
and he plays
seriously.
basketball with just like the little boys in the projects down the street. And they ain't got the money to play travel ball. They don't got no personal trainer. And so he out there in all his gear, his team bag. I play for the Spartans. And he's just talking crazy. And he done gotten like 3-4 altercations with the kids in the projects. And I'm like, bro, you got to stop. Because at some point, you done hit that middle school age. Like, they carrying stuff. And you not, because you square. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm your personal trainer, fool. Like, you with your dad every day. Some of these boys already hate you just because you got a daddy and your daddy's your trainer and you play for the national travel team. You coming out here with your nice KDs on and all your gear and you talking crazy. I'm like, man, you got to chill, you know, because 14, 15, it's real in these streets.
So that's an interesting part of the conversation, though, because I think kids now feel a lot safer than we did growing up. Like, I have this conversation with my daughters because they were raised in Frogtown, but they weren't raised in Frogtown, right? Like, there were a lot of experiences that they were spared that we were not.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think they have this almost like false utopian view of the world. Like, they're just kind of untouchable. Mm-hmm. And I'm always having to have a conversation with them. I'm like, listen, y'all live this life.
Yeah.
This life is not necessarily encompassing the whole world.
It ain't what everybody else living.
Yeah.
Your neighbors don't live like you live.
I will never forget when they were younger and they got phones. I had to explain to them, I'm like, listen, don't be flashy and don't be boastful about the fact that you have phones. Like, you go to a school where not all the other students are going to have phones. I'm like, one, it's rude.
And them kids be having phones, but they be stolen and turned off, and they only work on Wi-Fi.
Well, and I think, like, there's two lessons. That's
so they gonna take your daughter, folks. Oh, she got a data plan. Give me that.
Well, and I'm like, I had to explain it. I'm like, listen, you come from a life of privilege, much more so than a lot of other kids do. So, two, the lesson is, A, don't be boastful because not everybody has those opportunities. And two, you need to be aware of your surroundings and be aware that you are not the biggest fish in the pond. So keep it together.
You raising your kids in a traditional hood, but your kids are not traditional hood kids.
At all.
My kids live in the hood, but they are not hood kids. They like suburban kids that just happen to still stay in the hood.
That has been my kids' experience forever.
Let me remind you, you are not a hood kid. You just happen to stay in the hood still. And the hood kids know that y'all not hood too.
No, well, and it's so funny because the way my children speak similar to the way that I speak in and you guys, I mean, everybody knows how I talk. Yeah. And it's so funny because I'm like, y'all stick out like sore thumbs in certain environments because of the way that you've been raised to speak. I'm like, so you can think that you're of that element and of that world. They're looking at you like, what suburb did you just crawl out of?
Right. And you like, man, we live over off of Charles and Victoria.
And them kids are over there like, did you Google that? Like, no, you didn't.
Straight up. All right, we sidetracked a little bit talking about our traditional and non-traditional children. Let's get into traditional women. So what is a traditional woman historically?
Yes.
And where do you think women are today as it compares to like what women of the past once kind of look like?
Okay, so I will say like, well, let's just say, because to your point, you were saying in one of your posts that like traditional women prior to like World War II, which is when a lot of that like traditionalism kind of went out the window because of necessity of the country.
Mom was wearing an apron.
Building bullets and bombs.
Yeah,
for the
looking
war.
like Betty Crocker or something like that.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I think women of that era were the traditional like homemakers. You know, they did the cooking, the cleaning, the child rearing, like they ran the households, and they were very used to being financially taken care of as well as financially dependent on their husbands or, significant others. Back then, I will say it was much more common to be married.
Yeah. Marriage rates were real high back then.
Very high, very high. And so I think the ideology of like the traditional woman is that woman, right? The one that cooks, cleans, raises babies, kind of all that jazz. But I think in today's society, for several reasons, to your point, the one that you made where women fought for their rights and they wanted equality, that changed the dynamic. I think it made women a lot less dependent on men. So they were allowed to have more freedom and able to kind of live for themselves.
Yeah.
So today's traditional woman, I think, looks different in a couple of ways. One, majority of women today work.
Yeah.
They work. And I think most men do as well. But also, there's not very many men who can provide on their own and take care of women as the sole provider because of the way economics are set up.
Yeah.
So I think previous women were in that circumstance because it was necessary.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily have the means to work and be self-sufficient, and marriage was a requirement almost for survival. And
women needed men to survive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to your point, they didn't have, even if they could work, they worked for very low wages.
Right.
They wouldn't have been able to take their children with if they decided to dissolve the marriages.
That's something that people don't know.
I
that
know.
These new like child laws, as far as like the
It was
parenting
not
rights,
like that back
the
then.
rights used to go to the man.
Yes.
And it was because of finances. So, and I can't remember when this changed, and it's pretty recent. It's like 70s, 60s, 70s when women got rights to the child. But it used to be
if
that
you
it was
left the marriage, the husband kept the children.
The husband
and that
kept the
a lot
kids,
of women from leaving.
and they turned that around. So that's relatively new. But women, if they left on their own, and the man kept the kids.
They did.
Yep.
And the visitation was not a thing back then either.
Right.
If the father decided to just excommunicate the wife for leaving, they had nothing they could do about it.
That's real.
So I think that when people say traditional women, they're thinking of that, but that is not what we live in today's society.
So let's get a little spicy in here when we talk about tradition, because you talked about like the high level stuff, but let's talk about virginity.
Ooh, yeah.
Right. So like women want to be kept like traditional women, but if you got bodies on you, are you a traditional woman? Like, because if we're going to talk about the past and past expectations.
By previous standards, no.
Right. So,
By previous standards,
if
no.
you on Instagram and it's cheeks on Instagram, are you a traditional woman?
Not by previous standards, no.
If you are argumentative, talking back and telling a man what you gonna do, what you got, what you ain't gonna put up with, are you a traditional woman?
No.
So if the women aren't necessarily traditional, then why are we even having a conversation about why men should be? I mean,
well, but men aren't either, and I think that's the conversation that we get into today, because we live in a society where really majority of that no longer applies, right? Women are almost as successful as men in today's society.
Yeah.
They no longer have to be dependent on a man, right? But on the flip side, men are also perfectly capable of taking care of themselves. They know how to cook, clean, raise babies, and do all the stuff that women traditionally did.
Yeah.
So what we have now are both sides of the genders having the ability to fulfill both roles. Women are now providers and protectors and all that stuff for themselves. Men are now providers and protectors and everything. So now you've got kind of, again, we have this power struggle between both sides, because neither one really needs the other in today's society.
Yeah.
But yet we want each other, and I think that's where the issues come in.
Yeah. I'm going to take it even to a darker place, Let's go to the real streets. Like, you even see that dynamic exist in the streets when it comes to prostitution, right? There used to be pimps. Women no longer need pimps. Sex workers don't need pimps anymore.
Well, we have
now
multiple platforms that you can do.
You're able to operate as a sex worker
it's not even
independently,
as unsafe as it was,
Yeah.
and it's becoming more like legalized and less frowned upon.
So, and I bring that up because that falls in line with part of this traditional conversation. It used to be about protection and providing,
And
right?
they
Like
need that
a sex woman or sex worker needed a protector,
Yes.
and someone to provide the structure. And now what you're seeing on a criminal level is you're even seeing women playing that role
Yeah.
for other women.
Yeah.
So now it's like just a girl recruiting other girls. We've seen women go down and do a lot of years for leading
rings.
prostitution rings where men are like almost out of the picture in that industry because they no longer need you.
They don't, but also if you look at the dynamics in the ways that those relationships were managed on the male versus female side, men tend to manage from brute force.
Right.
And from a place of fear, whereas women in those situations I see typically come from a place of collaboration. And so the dynamics are different. So if you had your choice between fear and brute force versus collaboration, you're more than likely going to jump on the bandwagon of collaboration.
Right.
So
Right.
And definitely when it comes to that, you know, you're talking about the change of the field. You don't really have pimps no more. You have managers.
you do. You
Since
have managers.
since it's gone
and it's
virtual
reputable now.
it's managers. You
Yeah.
know, I got her in a contract. I'm managing her OnlyFans account. I got her in a contract. I'm managing her Instagram, and you pretty much do everything virtual. You know, it's
Not as dangerous as it was
yeah,
either.
it's definitely not as dangerous. You don't
And-
got to go around smacking chicks to get your money nowadays. You just
Well, and even for the women, it's
yeah.
not as dangerous anymore
Same.
because a lot of it's virtual.
Yeah.
Also, because it's becoming more of a social norm, you don't have the stigma associated with it as well.
yeah.
That's
So-
true. That's true. So I just wanted to bring that up because, you know, you have these different areas of society where you see traditional roles kind of disappearing.
Yes.
Or you have like some
But
role
then
reversal.
people still crave that
They still, because
tradition.
there's almost like it's still innate in us. Like we're
Well,
still
everybody
programmed
wants to
for
be
it.
taken care of, and I think where things get lost in translation is how, and I will say some of it might be true on gender. Each person wants to be what their idea of being taken care of is, because let's say some women feel like being taken care of is having someone financially provide for you and make you feel safe.
Yeah.
And some men's perception of being taken care of is knowing that you're going to come home, your house is clean, the meals are cooked, like kids are in good shape. But then on the flip side, some women who are workers would love to have them come home and like maybe they have a stay-at-home partner and their partner's done that. So I think what gets lost in translation is we have the confusion of wanting to be taken care of versus what our current ideologies are on gender roles.
Yeah, yeah. I think that men and women look for something different in a relationship with each other. So like men are big on like being respected, right? By their peers and by their women, right?
Yes.
Respect me. So I need my wife to respect me. Women are often looking to be loved, right? Not necessarily respected. Women want respect, but they want to be loved by their partner.
Well, and a woman's idea of respect and a man's idea of respect are different.
Well, check this out, though. If we get into a conflict and we're in a relationship and I'm mad at you, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go sleep on the couch. I'm going to make you feel like you're not loved, right? So now you got to sleep by yourself. Now you don't have anybody to cuddle with. Or I'll go stay out late. So to make you wonder, where you been? You been with somebody else? Hold on, let me finish. I'm not saying it's healthy. Let me finish, right? But I'm going to make you feel unloved, unwanted, undesired. You as a woman, to get under my skin, you'll disrespect me. You'll argue with me. You'll talk back. You'll do things intentionally to piss me off. You might get online and post more revealing pictures, post some extra selfies to make me feel disrespected as a man. How are you going to post this picture? You got so those are the things that men and women do because we're looking for something different from each other. And then we end up going through this like cycle of and wouldn't get to your point to what you're getting ready to say, this unhealthy pattern of behavior where, and I've done this personally myself and most men have, right? Like I had a temporary breakup because I did petty stuff to make my woman feel unwanted because I felt disrespected. I walked into my home. No one said hello to me. People treated me like crap. I just had a long day at work. You going to do me like that? Okay, watch this. And I went out and did some stupid stuff and it backfired, in the long run on both of us. And it was like, really, I probably should have just had a mature conversation about, hey, I feel like I deserve to be treated better when I come into the home.
Yeah.
But instead, I retaliated by making her feel unloved or unwanted.
Which I think speaks to the healthiness of the overall relationship. Because, like, I'm watching these videos pop up on TikTok, which honestly is giving me a lot of faith for, like, future generations and healthy relationships. Where it's like when you're mad at your partner and you're expecting it to be them doing petty things to each other, but it's not. Like, the woman's trying to open the pickles and he comes and snatches, opens it and passes it back.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the couch and he's cold and she walks by and drapes a blanket on him and then scoffs and walks off. You know, like just like I'm angry with you, but that doesn't mean that I don't love and care for you and still want what's best for you.
Right.
So like seeing the dynamic be more of that instead of, to your point, like that level of toxicity gives me more hope for like healthier relationships in the future. But because I was raised in like the petty era too when it comes to like when you're angry, and I had to evaluate like myself. Like I'm like, I don't want to move like that.
Right.
Like, I don't want them to do that to me, and I don't want to feel like I should do that to you.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't feel good. I don't feel like I'm healthy when I'm behaving that way.
Yeah. So here's another dynamic. I won't share too much information about the person, but he did want me to discuss this as it pertains to this topic. He said that his fiance has been having issues with the fact that he likes or hearts certain women's pictures, right?
Yeah.
And that
he should cut it off.
Wait, but he said, but if that's the case, then I need you to get off of social media. And she said, I'm not doing that. Why? He said, because you post pictures that men heart and like. And he said it's the same thing. He said, so if I can't like pictures of good-looking women, why should you, as a good-looking woman, post pictures
and allow other men to like it?
Other men alike.
He's not wrong.
So, like, where's the balance in there?
Right.
And then he said that she only gets upset when he likes pictures of women that she acknowledges are good looking. So she has to acknowledge the beauty and be like, and he said, so clearly she feels threatened by their appearance because she's only targeting certain individuals. I won't say no individuals' names, but one of them was on the list. So, yeah, you know, if you got a like from a certain person, you ain't going to get no likes no more because you came up. That's all I'm saying. But you happen to be one of those people that are causing rifts in people's relationships.
Me?
I can't even go to the bar with you without it being a problem. So, yeah, there's certain people, you know, in my life.
Got that juice.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Pimp juice.
I think people think I am far more interesting than I actually am.
Man, look, I'm just saying, we're talking about tradition. We're talking about respecting one another, the roles that we play. There are a lot of elements where we're like, we just really can't seem to get to a place where we see eye to eye. Like there's no balance.
Have the conversation. Because so, to your point about balance, the synopsis you were just giving us, she has every right to ask him not to like other people's pictures. He also has every right to ask her not to post similar pictures of herself. And I think that that's the conversation, because here's the deal. If you've picked that person as your partner, right, and you're like, you're it, you're the end all be all, none of that other stuff matters.
Right.
Because if I pick you and this is going to cause that choice to be in conflict, then it's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's not even a conversation. I'm not arguing about it. I don't care, because if it's you, then I don't care. I'm not arguing about it. Like, that's the choice that I've made.
What's crazy? So I had this teacher back in college, Dr. Denard at FAMU, and he told our class, he said that in his relationship, his wife of I don't know how many decades, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, he said he is allowed to acknowledge other women's beauty. He was like, beauty is real. My wife allows me to acknowledge beauty.
Yeah.
And so I think about like my own use of social media, right? I'm not dating anybody at this time. There's a few people that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people that I'm not for whatever reason, but they may still look good. They still may be fine.
Right.
I'm going to acknowledge the picture like, man, that's a good picture. Like there was a girl the other day I have no interest in. Look, bomb in the picture. And there's this new app I think people are using. It's called like Vivid or something, where it's making them look like, you know, they're painted or something like that. And I hearted the picture, and I wrote a comment. I was like, man, that picture's dope.
Yeah.
Like she looked beautiful in it.
Yeah.
But it in no way was I like trying to hit on her. Was, you know what I'm saying? Now at the same time, there's a few women that I am interested in. I'll like their picture also. But if I plan on taking that next step, I'm going to be intentional about taking that next step.
Yeah.
Because whether you look good or you don't, if you post a good picture, like if you look good in your dress, if you and your girls are out having a good time, like I'm just going to show love. Like, man, that's a beautiful group of women, man. Y'all had a great time at the exchange. Like, I'm going to heart that. But I just feel like there's so much pressure to be like, dang, like you can't even acknowledge somebody anymore. You know, it's just rough.
There. It is. And me personally, like I don't care.
Do you heart other women's pictures when they look good? You acknowledge other women too, right? Doesn't mean that you want to sleep with them. You're just like, man, you look good. Well, I heart men's pictures, like, and it don't mean like I love you in like a homosexual way. Like, bro, I love that. You know what I'm saying? Well, like that's what's up.
In previous relationships, me and my partner, we'd be in the mall and somebody fine with about, we'd be like,
yeah, they look good. We was at Billy's and we was acknowledging a BBL.
Legit. Because
a BBL walked by. I was like, Lana, you see that?
I know.
Look like two basketballs right
I'm
there.
over there trying to be all incognito so I can see because she's standing on the other side of him.
I was like, behind me. Two of my homies was like about 5-10 feet away. They looking at me. I'm looking at them. Lana's in front of me like, what are you looking at? I'm like, right here.
I'm over there trying to see and I can't see
everybody looking at the booty, you know.
But it's just like, I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I don't take those types of things personal because again, like we are visual creatures. Mm-hmm. I think often it's always like, well, men are visual. No, we as a species are visual creatures. Yeah. So I don't care because shoot, I'm looking too. And if some handsome man walks by, I'm probably gonna be like, hey, you kind of fine. And I'm gonna need you to be like, good looking dude. Right. Cool. And we're gonna go out about our day.
Man, my baby mama love The Rock. I love Megan Good. We had an understanding. She liked The Rock. I like Megan Good. Like, look,
if we
ever get the opportunity to meet him, we might do a little polygamous thing where it just be the four of us all together. The Rock, he paying all the bills because he's the traditional man. I'm going to be the stay-at-home husband and take care of both the women.
There you go. There's that hall pass. Like, that would be one of my hall passes. Right. Be The Rock.
And The Rock seemed cool. Like, we can hang out. You know what I'm saying? We could be brother husbands.
Be good to go.
That was a good movie you just did.
Heck yeah, you know what I'm saying? Kevin Hart come to the house, you know, crack jokes, kick it during the game. Like, we could just be one big happy family, man.
Right.
One big happy family. But yeah, I feel like there's so much pressure on us in these relationships. So let's move it forward to the financial piece, which is the 50-50 conversation.
Yeah.
I want to preface it by saying that I really don't think this conversation is taking place in every group in America. I feel like typically right now, I think it's a conversation that's happening in communities of color, and I think it's limited to like mid to lower income, right?
Yeah.
I think that people who are more affluent, making a whole lot of money, are not having these conversations.
No.
And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that white Americans are really having this conversation.
Well,
I think it's limited to people of color who are struggling financially that are arguing over the finances.
Well, that's exactly why. Because when you have two people that are struggling financially, someone always wants to lessen the burden on themselves. So the easiest way to do that if you're struggling financially is to make someone else responsible for the finances.
Yeah.
So I think that that's where that argument comes in, is a lot of times, and people will put it in, I won't say the guise, but they'll put it in the category of care. But really what it is you're asking someone to come along and help you with your financial burden.
Yeah.
Because prior to that relationship, you were still required to care for yourself.
Right.
You were still required to care for your own expenses.
So basically what people are arguing about is whether or not, you know, somebody should come save them.
Pretty much.
From their own financial woes.
I've said this many times, but I don't believe in being financially dependent on another person.
Right.
I just think it puts you in a bad place. I think it creates an unhealthy power struggle. Now, that's not to say that someone, if they have the means, can't come in and take care of you. But like, let's say that I'm a stay-at-home mom, right? Like I'm the stay-at-home wife and I take care of the children. I'm going to expect you to give me a stipend because that is my job. That is what I am doing, is I am providing these services for our overall well-being. And just like you get paid from your job, I want a stipend. And here's why. I want you to provide me a stipend so that if anything happens, I have a nest egg put away, because I've seen this happen to a lot of women who decided to stay at home and raise babies and be the wife. All of a sudden, you know, something goes awry and they're getting divorced. She has no skills to use in the workforce. She has no money to support herself because the husband took care of all the finances and she did not have a nest egg for herself.
Right.
So
now she out here down bad.
Well,
and looking for the next guy to come along and take it.
But guess what? She's now 20 years older.
Yep.
She's had multiple children. She's in a completely different world.
Ooh. Now you're going down that Kevin Samuels conversation, because that's kind of
but
what
it's
he be.
just
That's what he be talking
different.
about. He be like,
It's
you're
harder
40,
to date
you
when
got
you're
4
older.
kids, you're 60 pounds heavier than you were when you graduated high
and
school.
not only that, but
like,
the men at that age that you're going to be able to date are in different circumstances as well. Maybe they're divorced and they're already paying alimony and supporting other children, doing all those things. The opportunity to meet someone who has the means to take care of you that way is much easier to do in your younger years than it is when you're older.
Yeah.
Because think about it, the men who can do that, they're looking for younger women who are ready to play that role again.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Rico.
But the nest egg, not that long ago, that was the big conversation. It was kind of the females' comeback for a prenup, because the same flack that men get for prenup, men give women the same slack for the nest egg. They're like, why are you, what do you mean?
Why do you need to put money away?
Yeah,
Why
what do you mean you have
with
another
just your
account
name on it?
with just your, what's this
protection.
going on? And how do you guys feel about that? Because I know a lot of people who are, that's like, no, if I find out, 10 years into a marriage that you
You've
have
got
a nest egg.
Siphoning money.
Yeah, and then it's like, we haven't talked about it. We haven't talked about nothing about, oh, I'm taking money out of here and putting in this account for me. You're just literally,
because you might be planning your exit.
That's low key.
Yeah,
but
stealing
if you're
money.
planning your exit and you're mad that they're planning their exit,
But
what
you're
does that
stealing
say about you as a partner?
You're
How are
stealing
you
from the
stealing?
house.
How are
because
you stealing?
you're not talking about nothing, and you're putting this money. You're not
aside.
If you don't if you say the situation is we have not had a conversation about you having a nest egg, right? If you have a conversation, it's one thing, but without the conversation, that's stealing.
So
you're putting it into a separate account. I don't have access to this money. You're taking it from our money, and now you're putting it away
Does
just
this
in case.
person work or not work?
Just either way, you work.
Hold on. I'm going to use the situation.
I feel like it's worse if you don't work. If you're putting money into this family pot, it's like, all right, your money. That's low key. You got reasoning. That's your money. But if you're sitting at home, and you're not putting no money into the pot,
who's really
but you're
sitting at home, like that idea of sitting at home.
That's why I want to use. I want to use a celebrity situation,
and that's happening. I feel like that's the problem with a lot of men.
Let's talk
in
about
America.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Okay,
now this was a while back, so I don't have this information. Is not fresh in my head, but Shaquille O'Neal's wife was using nest egg money to pay for the personal trainer's life. If I recall, she was paying for his condo. She was paying for his car. He was her side piece, right? Shaq didn't know where the money was going. She had a whole man on the side, and she was literally affording his services, not just personal training services.
Yeah.
From Shaq's pocket. Now, if this was, say, a retirement fund that was her nest egg, he was putting money in a mutual funds account or something like that. But if it's rainy day money or to finance a secondary lifestyle or something, that's why I believe what you're saying, Rico, is saying it should be a conversation hey, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm not working. Not working. So I need a spending account and a savings account that is solely for me. And
I definitely understand that. But without that conversation, I feel
theft.
like you're stealing.
Yeah.
That's definitely theft.
That's why I feel like you should have those conversations in the beginning. Because that, for me, if a man came to me and said, listen, I want you to be the stay-at-home partner. I want you to solely focus on running the household and raising our children. I'm going to be like, okay, great. But I need you to understand that you're asking that to be my job. So there will be compensation associated with that is going to be mine so that I can have that in a separate account for myself.
Definitely should be. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, ladies, I'm a personal trainer. I've held 4 certifications. So if you got a rich husband and you need a personal trainer and you know, I got you. That's all I'm saying. I solicit my services. All of my services.
That's definitely one of them hot topics right there with that nest egg.
Throw some money in the account, man, and we good. House, car, what I'm saying, a little vacation.
You want a condo by the beach?
Yeah, I'm trying to go to Costa Rica, Hey, I got you, baby. 60-day body makeover.
But you know what else? So what else is interesting is when you bring up those conversations, watch what your partner's reaction is.
Yeah.
Because that tells you a lot about how much they care about your overall well-being. Because if someone really cares for you and really wants to make sure that you're set in life, it's going to be whether you're with them or not. That is, I love you and I want you to do well regardless
That's real.
of whether we're affiliated or not.
Yeah.
So if you sit down and you tell your partner, I would like to have a lease agreement if we're going to move in together and I'm not going to be on the deed. And they're like, wait, what? Why?
Yeah.
Because I want us both to be protected. If they're don't automatically shift like, well, absolutely, you should have protection. I would never want you to be stuck in a position.
Even if we break up, I still love you.
I still love you, and I still want you to do well.
If I got 100 million, you know, even if this don't work out, I want you to have a couple mil.
Exactly.
You know, and then you go and do your thing.
I still want you to be safe and comfortable, because that, again, those conversations tell you a lot of the same thing with the prenups. Everybody gets so up in arms about prenups, but here's the deal. That is for both of us to be protected.
Yeah.
That's for you to end this relationship in the best abilities that we can, and for me to end this relationship in the best abilities.
That's right.
So if a person argues when it's beneficial to both parties, then they do not inherently have your best interest at heart.
Yeah, because when it goes bad, that's when you find out who people really are. And
but
now you trying to tear me off.
I understood you were a good person.
Right.
I want the agreements to put in place when we're in love and we're in good spaces.
When we happy.
Yeah.
That's real. That's real.
That's why you have them in the beginning. So to your point, yes, I'm going to sit down and tell you, I will have an account that is going to be for my well-being. And if you love me, you should not have an issue with me having this account.
More celebrity stuff, right? So Danny Lay, the baby's girl, that was another similar situation. Even though she's a celebrity in her own right, but you had another situation where you had a woman pretty much living off of a guy, and then when things went bad,
put her out.
You know, and it's
the
just
baby.
You know, and you gotta so you do need to protect yourself. And I do agree with you, Lana. If you love someone, like you genuinely love someone, when things go wrong, you don't want to screw them over. Because then I feel like if you
ever really love them
in the first place, genuine? Right?
Yes,
right.
Because there's people today that like I've fallen out with. I still love you.
Right.
You could call me tomorrow and be like, I need you. And I will come. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean we're going to be like back in each other's lives every day. But if you really needed me, if I ever loved you once, I'm going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just...
You know, I posted that on my Snap, man. You know, all my exes are still my girls. You know what I'm saying? Like when my exes hit me up, you know, they know they can just, you know, call daddy. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm always here for you, baby. Whatever you need, if I got it, and it's within reason. You know, they all my girls, and they all got boyfriends now. But you know.
Believes very heavily in polygamy.
I've declared that I'm a polygamist now moving forward, because I still take care of my exes when they need me. If they don't need me, fine, because I'd rather you not call me and ask me for nothing. Don't ask me for nothing. But honestly, because at some point, like, we were in love, right? We were in love, and most of my relationships have been like pretty long term, you know. And so if I've ever been in love with you, I still love you. And if you need something, or, you know, your kids need something, and even if you're in a relationship and stuff's not working out for y'all, like, and you need help, as long as it's not going to damage his ego and he's not going to feel no type of way, then I'll support you as just a genuine friend. You know what I'm saying? Now, will I go out of my way or mess up what I got going on or jeopardize my current relationship? No, and I don't want you to do that with yours.
Exactly.
But I just feel like as a good person, like, you can come to me like you would a friend or a family member, because at some point we had a relationship that was actually meaningful. And if y'all need it and I got it, as long as you can pay it back or whatever that is, then I'm gonna look out.
Well, do you guys think that your new official part, or like say you get a partner and you're super locked in, do they have the right to say that these relationships are something that can no longer be around?
Have to have a conversation up front and discuss it.
Yep.
And set boundaries.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, because we're all going to feel some type of way. So you just got to be real clear on that, and then give that person the choice.
Yes.
You know, and I think we both have that experience just because we co-parent, you know. So anybody that dates me, anybody that dates her, and I don't want to speak for you, but you have to have an understanding that when my son, mom going to call me, like, if she say, yo, we got a situation or I need this, like,
I got to go.
I'm going to go. And don't feel no type of way. And in fact, you can come with me.
Exactly.
You know, meet her. Like, birthday party, I'm gonna put both y'all in the kitchen together. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like, you go get the cake, and you go get the ice cream.
Lana, what would be your advice for? Because I know a lot of females who are struggling with that. You know, they've now have found their partner, and the dynamic of the baby's mother is very challenging to them. Yeah. So, what would be some advice you can give to the ladies out there on that topic?
So, I'll say it this way. one, when you're stepping into a relationship where they've already had children, you need to understand that you're stepping into an established relationship. Now, that relationship might be different today than what it was when they were together, but you are. And I also think that it's up to us as women in those situations to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because I think it's hard for the man in that situation to navigate between the two women because you're trying to manage both sides of things.
And the feelings piece.
Yes.
Like we don't know how to manage that. We like, oh crap.
It's complicated. So I think that it's really important that, one, be honest with yourself as the mother of the child and as the other woman coming in. Like, if you're the mother of the child and you still have complicated feelings when it comes to your ex, her new man, maybe it's not the right time to integrate. Maybe you need to take some more space to that. Like, maybe you need to spend some time feeling, finding your happiness, building on yourself and doing things like that. Maybe it's not time. Let's say that those emotions are not there. As the woman coming in, always be the first to offer the olive branch. Mm-hmm. Ask. I think a lot of times women come into the situation and they let the father dictate how present they're allowed to be in the children's lives without ever having met the mother. And I think that can create a really unhealthy dynamic. So I think,
who you got around my kid?
Well, it's fine. Ask your partner, and you should be able to do this. Like, would you facilitate like a lunch or a dinner or even a phone call between myself and the mother of your children? Yeah. I would like to get to know her. I would like her to know me so she can know her kids are safe here. They're in good hands. And then again, offer that olive branch. If you're getting ready to do something with the kids, like such and such wants to do this, shoot a courtesy text.
Yeah.
Just to show that you're validating her feelings as a mother and like, hey, we're going to go do this. I just want to let you know what the plans are for today. I hope you're doing well. Things like that can make them feel really at ease and welcome in that situation and not make them feel like they're being excommunicated from their children's lives.
And if the guy has a problem with it,
that's
red flag.
Red flag.
Big
red flag.
If he got a problem with it, he probably still knocking some.
Well, and also,
y'all ain't finna be friends.
If you date a man and he's constantly like, my baby, like if he's always like talking poorly about the mother of his children,
that's a
be
huge
very
red flag.
Careful about that because, it might. Because here's the deal: if he's serious about you and you're coming in to help him co-parent essentially, and he doesn't foster a healthy relationship between you and the mother of his children, he more than likely doesn't plan to keep you.
That's real.
Because he knows that the mother of his child is permanent.
Yeah.
So if he's out here, if he's out here and he's like, oh, y'all don't need to talk, she's crazy or whatever. Well, read between the lines on that one because it's telling.
That's right.
She's permanent. If he doesn't want to foster a healthy relationship, he's telling you that you're not.
Yeah. Man, we done took a whole other segue. Let's
deep,
reel it on into the 50-50 conversation. So I want to go down the historical path since we talked tradition. Again, going back to my snap because I felt like I dropped some jewels. I think that you gave some good feedback. But I want to give people a little bit of history of this whole 50-50 dynamic and how it once started with men being the providers. And you touched on it a little bit. So, again, on my Snapchat, I was sharing that pre-World War II, women did not have a large presence in the workforce. Women had traditional jobs and kind of roles that they did have, housekeepers, maybe like teachers, nurses, librarians,
nannies,
elevator operators at clothing stores. There were certain jobs that women had, but they were low wage, right? And in our grandparents' day, that man could work one job, and it could be a good job. It could be working on the railroad. It could be working in a factory like Whirlpool up here or like a Ford plant. And that job could afford a lifestyle to maintain a family of a wife, 2-3 kids. You could have a car or two. And I had brought up the point that like my grandmother never even had a driver's license. A lot of women didn't even drive back then. So you really only needed one car. You could go on a family vacation. A man could afford all of those things. So when we're talking like a traditional man, that's what a traditional man looks like. And I realized that a lot of people always reference like my grandparents were married 70 years, because traditional times, traditional economy. Well, what happened was when women entered the workforce, when all these men went off to war and they started fighting, it left a lot of voids in the workplace. especially working with the military. Women were taking jobs even in the military to help produce a lot of the parts, ammunition, things like that. So they started entering the labor force and working. And when the men came back after the war, the women had a sense of like liberation. They felt like, man, I can go to work too. I can earn money too. So they wanted to maintain their jobs and maintain their position in the workforce. Once they did that, the men came back, but the men still made a whole lot more money. Men came home and then became dissatisfied with their women because their women wanted something other than what they wanted before, which was to just be at home raising their kids. Those noble professions like teaching, the reason why people say teachers are underpaid is because traditionally teachers were just married women who were already taken care of. You didn't have to pay a teacher a whole lot of money. Still today, 90% of teachers are white women. And I would assume most of them are still married. So they can afford to be underpaid when they have a husband that has a high-paying job. But because society has changed and you have now people going into like the education path that are becoming teachers, but they need more money because they're single parents or now they're men. And teaching doesn't pay enough. So you had that dynamic shift. I was looking into a study about real estate, and it talked about a teacher's salary in Los Angeles, California. And I'm not going to like quote the numbers because it was a while ago, but it was saying like back in like the 50s, a teacher made $9,000 a year. The average house cost in LA at that time was like $24,000. So you basically made a third of what a house cost as a teacher. Today, the national average price on a home is like $425,000. The national average teacher salary is like $60,000. But why? It's because if you have two people making $60,000 in a home, you got $120,000. So these new prices that we're looking at, this inflated cost of living, is based on two income earners in a household, not one. So when women are saying, I don't want to go 50-50, I want a man who's going to pay all the bills, the man literally has to make the income of two people to satisfy the cost of living that America and our economy has created for us. And the reality is 90% of people don't make that much money. Only 10% of people in Minnesota make $150,000 or more, right? That's two $75,000 incomes, which is our state average. I think our state average income is $72,000 right now. So only 10% of people make what two people makes. So only 10% of men can actually provide a lifestyle for you. And so if you got all of these women, you got 100% of the women are looking for 10% of the men to take care of them. What does that do? And then you say, well, you don't want your man to cheat. You want a man that's loyal. Well, baby, I'm in the top 10% and I got 100% of the ladies looking to be taken care of. So I got a lot of options. You want me to be faithful to you, but this pool, it's a supply and demand game. There's only a few of these guys out here that actually exist. And I've been looking for jobs recently. I've been looking at the incomes. So many people cap on how much money they make. Because the jobs that pay $120,000 around here in the state of Minnesota are limited, and they require higher levels of education, 10 years of experience, master's degrees, doctorate degrees. And I'm not saying people in sales and stuff can't hit those marks. They can. But most professions, if you're not a doctor, you're not an engineer, if you're not a corporate exec, you're not making 150 bands. And most of us aren't. So I feel like if you're not looking to go 50-50, 60-40, maybe 70-30. You're living a pipe dream right now because America simply costs too much. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that?
So I think that honestly, I think is a more important conversation than the whole argument of like the 50-50 piece. Because economically, for people to even live alone now, it's complicated. Mm-hmm. And so to live together is not only more intelligent from a money perspective, it's sometimes the only feasible plan.
Right.
But the idea of being taken care of, has to morph into a different conversation now. Because again, if financially you cannot afford to take care of another person, then you have to look at the other avenues on how to make a person feel taken care of. I watched a video the other day, and it was talking about people who don't get their needs met in relationships. And one of the conversations came up was about intimacy. And the conversation was, if you are asking me to be solely with you from an intimate perspective, then you're asking me to only get those needs met from you. But if you're not willing to meet my needs, then where does that put me? Right? It's very similar to the conversation about like finances. If you ask me, if we're sitting in a relationship, we're talking about 50-50. Can you even provide 50-50? Because let's take, on average, you said people make about $72,000 a year.
In Minnesota,
But I think that there's subgroups of that, right?
Yeah, because if we want to be real about like my ethnic group, Black people in St. Paul in Minnesota, the median household income in Minneapolis is like $28,000 a year, and St. Paul is like 32.
Yeah.
So that's why I said a lot of people live in a pipe dream. Like we ain't being honest about what our money looks like.
No. And with increasing cost of rent and home ownership and things like that, like
gas prices,
everything, food, everything's gone up. The cost of childcare, like a lot of the basic necessities that people face are astronomical right now.
Right.
Like they're so much higher. And so like the whole conversation of 50-50 isn't even necessarily about what you want and don't want. It's what you can and cannot do. So I think the conversation of 50-50 at this state for a lot of people is unrealistic.
Yeah.
So again, but that's people who are already struggling financially, looking to put the burden of their finances on someone else.
Think about this. A median income earner, $70,000. You take on a partner. That's like two people making $35,000 a year. $35,000 a year is working full time for about $16 an hour. A person making six figures, say they hit 100. That's two people making $50,000. I just seen somebody post on Facebook about making $50,000 a year, and people like $50,000 a year is trash. Well, if you go and find a dude making $100,000 and then he brings you into his home, that's like two people with 50K jobs. So, I mean, you still not doing good then, because you still and I don't want to say doing good, because 50K, depending upon your lifestyle, if you got kids, like you can definitely, handle yourself, but you're not balling. If one person is taking care of another adult with $100,000, that's two $50,000 incomes. That's still below median income in the state of Minnesota. And then you throw children on that, and and because you make $100,000, you're not qualifying for nothing. You're not getting no health care benefits. You're not getting no affordable housing. You're not getting no food stamps. You're not even getting the stimulus money that came out during COVID because your husband makes $100,000 and you got zero, and you got two kids, family of 4 and 100 bands. And you don't get a stimulus check.
I think it was 112 for head of household.
Come on, ladies, like y'all not thinking this through economically.
That's financial literacy. That's something. I feel like that's
like, I need a man who makes $100,000. I'm not going to work. No, you're taking your ass to work.
Well,
because why can't we have 200,000? Like, why can't I have 100? You have 100. We could pull in $250,000 if we support each other, baby.
It's a lot of not having the lack of financial literacy, and then the explosion of social media, because people see 100 bands on the regular nowadays. Like you say, people say, oh, 50,000 a year ain't nothing. It's like, actually that's comfortably broke. 50,000 a year. If you're making 50,000 a year, you
paying your
comfortable.
Car note, you paying your rent, but you still trying to find a side hustle.
You got food in the house.
Out how to get back to college.
Everything's taken care of, but after everything's taken care of, you ain't got no money. You ain't broke, player. You taking care of your responsibilities. Car paid,
but
food
some
there.
Person's idea of broke versus another person can be vastly different, because again, I think people have a very skewed perception of what lifestyle they want to live. Because I think people want to get in a relationship and live a lifestyle that they've never experienced.
Right.
I'm like, you want to get into a relationship and have a lifestyle you've never even been able to provide for yourself.
Like, spell Balenciaga before I put you in some shit.
So I think, like, to your point, people have a huge lack of financial literacy when it comes to that. And I'm like, you're looking for someone to create a reality that you've only dreamt of, or to your point, have seen on social media. The average person isn't living that, even in a 2-person household with 2 incomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's just not the way that it works. And again, if people expect so much out of their partners, but don't expect half as much out of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a big disconnect as well, because the conversation we had previously where we said you have to become the person you want.
Right.
Because energy attracts energy. Like, how am I going to look you in the face and be like, well, you need to make $100,000 a year? Because if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, cool, so you make $100,000 a year.
Right.
Like, okay. Because then you can tell me what I need to do with my finances.
Mm-hmm. You can help me get there then, right?
Oh,
Since,
yeah. So
since
you're
you
be
tell me
able to
what I
lead
need,
me
you
to
must
this
be
road.
the expert.
Exactly. But I think that is a lot of times the conversation that people are having. And I'm like, again, men looking at women to be the traditional partners, women looking at men to be the traditional partners, but yet they, again, are not traditional people.
Right.
And I'm like, that's where that argument is coming in.
Yeah.
You got to stop looking at external sources for your happiness.
Mm-hmm.
It's nobody's responsibility to take care of you and make you happy but yourself.
Right.
And if you can't make yourself happy and comfortable, and if you can't take care of yourself financially, how do you looking at somebody else to do it for you?
Yeah.
You don't even have the skill set to do it yourself.
And the reality is like, by coming together, regardless of what the other person makes, it's the automatic bubble up.
Yeah.
Like, if one person makes 70 and the other person makes 30, you now have 100.
$100,000.
50-50. Even if it's 30,000, you now have 60. Like, you don't have to operate independently, and you don't have to put the burden all on one person if you work as a collective. And that's like the thing. It just like, it drives me crazy when I read the social media posts and I see people having this argument. I'm like, man, this is a poverty argument. This is a broke mindset,
but again,
right here.
because people who aren't impoverished, they don't have these
They're
conversations.
not arguing about that.
They don't, but they don't have the financial burden. So like, in their mind, they're like, I don't need to talk about 50-50 because I got it.
Right.
So it's the people who don't have it that are having, because the truth is, like, we had that podcast where we talked about taking your date to a place you can afford.
Mm-hmm.
That is a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So sometimes people go 50-50. Like, I think the reason that each side gets frustrated is because women can't afford to take themselves out to dinner.
Yeah.
So they want a man to do it. And men can't necessarily afford to date women and take them wherever they want to go because it's expensive.
Yeah.
So both parties are trying to put the financial burden on the other party when really it's like, either one of y'all are really in the place to be having a conversation about finances, period.
Right.
Like, you really need to reevaluate where you are financially before you go looking at another person to handle your finances.
And what's wrong with sitting down together saying, this is where we are, this is where we want to be, let's come up with a plan to get there. You know, because I've had the conversation with different people. So like, I got a couple millionaire homies. I got a homie that, you know, play professional ball, hundreds of millions of dollars. I got a cousin that is a millionaire through insurance. I got another cousin who probably makes about $250,000 a year. All three of them, their wives work. But then when I talk to people who are broke, they over here talking about what they are going to pay and what they're not going to pay. But the ones that got money, they're not arguing over that. Their wives are working and contributing, and there's no discussion. They're like, oh, yeah, we just put our money into one big account. We also have a savings account. We got the kids' savings account, and we both got a spending account. Yep. But they're not monitoring dollar for dollar who pays what bill. They just setting that thing on auto pay and it just comes out the pot. But then it's the people who are penny pinching that's like, nah, you got to pay all my bills if I'm going to move in with you in exchange for what?
Right.
Sex?
Well, and also, let's talk about 50-50 is not always feasible. Sometimes it needs to be 70-30 or 80-20, because if that person makes X amount more dollars than you, but they're asking you to split $2,700 in rent, but you make a fraction of what they do, that's not fair.
You're going to have me out here messed up.
Or if the lifestyles are different, you know, if one person comes from a little bit of money and the other person is more on the struggle side, you know, maybe, you know, just working 40 hours a week. And it's like, you know, if you want, once you guys do move into a spot together, now you guys have chosen each other, you know, one person's kind of bougie and now they can't really expect you to pay for their lifestyle. And especially if you're upfront, it's like, you know, we can, with this money, we can do this, but this. No, you want to do this. Okay. But you know, we got to talk about what I'm putting in.
What if a woman who's in corporate, who's doing really well, marries a or is in a relationship with a traditional, hard-working, blue-collar man
But he doesn't
that
make
maybe
what she
works
makes.
like in construction, which in construction by
make
any
good
all
money.
means, trades
Make
make
good
good
money.
money, but doesn't make her money, right?
Yeah, different levels.
Is he not qualified because
Be her
he's only
partner.
pulling 70,000
Yeah, 'cause he's
and he
not
got
the
to
breadwinner.
Yeah, and his work is seasonal because he might make that 70,000 in like the 8 months of warm weather up here.
Yeah.
But is he not qualified to date somebody who's a higher income earner? Like he's still putting in that time. Like I just feel like our mindset is so we're so thrown off.
I think right
bro.
now we're in the middle of, because you kind of look at it, it's kind of like every 100 to 150 years, traditions switch up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, in World War II, that's when it first started. Now, I feel like maybe like your kids' kids will have this figured out.
Yeah.
Will have this struggle we're going with figured out right now. But
It's getting better.
Yeah,
I will say
it
it's
is.
getting better because we're having, again, more honest and open conversations
Yeah.
about it. But I think that people have to get out of their own way.
yeah, it's definitely on our generation. You know, we're still kind of young and dumb, so we're seeing what people are putting in front of us and saying, "Well, I want that," and it comes with time and experience. But eventually, we'll get to the point where it's like, all right, we're grown. You know, I ain't gonna be able to just sit here and take care of the kids and not help in some type of way. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
You know, or you can't expect me to just work all this time and you not do anything if there's no kids or whatever. And this is it really just comes with the conversation, sitting down, having that, you know.
Expectations.
So
Yeah.
I also want to talk about when you catch these people, these high income earners, because that's another thing, right? So to get to that level of money, if you're not like an exception to the rule person, so exceptions to the rules or outliers are like pro athletes, right? They become millionaires at like age 21 to 25.
Yes.
Celebrity entertainers that kind of hit the lottery, they got lucky, they got big, they blew up. But most people, earning money takes time. So say you did go to college. Even if even if you went into a profession like being an engineer, say you stepped out into the game, I'm gonna use Minnesota income. Say you stepped out in the game at like 80,000 at age 23, 24 years old when you came out of school, right? A woman has to be willing to get in a relationship and marry that guy at 80K and then be in it for the long haul so he can get to that point. Because when you're dating and meeting new people and looking at a potential husband, like in those middle 20s, maybe upper 20s, the 20-year-olds don't have that bag yet. Like even the most highly educated ones, even the dudes getting out of law school, they still got to get there.
Yep.
And so what ends up happening is if you're young, and I'm speaking to the women, if you're young and you're chasing a bag and you're looking for the guy with the bread, what you're doing is then you're going to look past those dudes with all the potential because you want the guy with the money who can pay for your life right now. But he's 40.
Yeah.
He's 40 because you got to work to get there. Say a dude comes out of school, starts teaching, and one day becomes a principal. But to become a principal, you got to get the master's degree. Then you got to go back and get the
get your
EDS
tenure.
degree. You got to get the principal license. You got to have 5 years of experience. You're not a principal till you're 35. And even when you become a principal at 35, you start out making $85,000 a year as an assistant principal. You 40 by the time you become a principal. By that time, you've had 2 kids, you've had 2 marriages, and now you over here dating a 25-year-old girl who's like, yes, I found a 6-figure brother. Meanwhile, you done passed up on the 25-year-old making $50,000, $60,000 because he didn't have enough to take care of you. Like, it doesn't make sense. There's no logical thought process behind this right now, man.
Well, and I think that there's the conversation too is so like McGregor, the UFC fighter.
Yep.
So his wife,
Held him
she
down.
supported him and cared for him and fed him and got him all his stuff. Like she took care of him while he worked his way up through the UFC world and got himself together. So I think that there's the conversation of that too, where sometimes you have to look at the overall potential. And when I say that, I mean, like, don't look at a person and be like, but you could be. No, look at a person who's actively working towards those things and look at that as like an investment of your time.
And stay down till they come up.
Yeah, but also I will say sometimes there's plenty of women who did, to your point about the
And it
40-year-old.
backfires.
The 40-year-old who's now dating a 25-year-old had 2 women. Well, them 2 women fought the grit with him while he got there. Now he's left them, and he's with the 25-year-old who didn't have to put in any of the work.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's a complicated space to navigate on both sides. That's why I always advocate you got to take care of yourself.
So going back to tradition, I don't know. People in the studio a little young, but I know you know this movie, Color Purple.
Yep.
Right? Oh, Rico's like,
I feel a little
Color
disrespected
Purple.
about that. But
Y'all a little young. I don't know if y'all know about Color Purple.
Come on now.
All right,
Color
Harpo.
Purple. Harpo
You
now.
told Harpo to beat me.
You know, I be
All
talking.
right,
Hey, I need 3 ice cubes.
But that's an example of where like there were arranged relationships, arranged marriages, young women being with older men. So traditional relationships, older men with younger women, because the men had to have the ability to take care of the woman.
Yep.
The man had the land. He had the farm, he had the animals, he had the horse. And so then he would go and get a girl to come in and give him kids, you know, rear these children. He may have even had another woman living in that was a nanny who was also probably a side chick in the house, also helping take care of those kids. So that was traditional. It was tradition for older men to get younger women because they had the ability to take care of them. You can't expect a 22, 23, 25-year-old guy to take care of another 22-year-old girl. Like, it's just not possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to grow to put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. I need people really to just wake up to that, man. We got to get to a place where we're understanding money and we're understanding this lifestyle. We can't operate in tradition no more. Like we got to move on.
Society just doesn't support previous traditional norms.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't. Yeah. Again, it's too expensive. We don't live the same lifestyle of a traditional world. Mm-hmm. And the ones that do are so few and far between that they're now the outliers. Yeah. The average people in society, it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, due to time, let's move on to our third topic. It's all connected. But let's talk a little bit about how are we kind of tying this in with the how did you word that? The Rico, you got it. I forgot how we were wording this topic because we had 3 topics that all kind of related.
So
the expectation,
it is the value of the person who's
staying at home.
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say the expectation of the person that's staying at home. So the value of the stay-at-home parent. That's how we worded that?
Yep.
All right, so last segment, the value of the stay-at-home parent. When we talk about value, is it like the way that we feel about it, or is there monetary value? Like, what do you mean by that?
I think it's both, right? So the reason that I brought this up was I was watching a video and it was talking about how in today's society, the spouse that does the majority of like the domestic work as well as working full time, often like their time isn't as valued. And I will say for the most part that usually falls on women because now, again, because we've stepped away from the traditional roles, women are now expected to work, also raise children, do household chores, cook, clean, yada, yada, yada. Whereas the male, the biggest expectation a lot of time is just to work.
Just go to work, right.
And so it's become this huge shift of expectations. Or even when you take that back and you talk about the stay-at-home mom, whereas the man will go work his 40 hours and then come home. Or let's just say the working partner will work their 40 hours.
Yeah.
Come home. And then, like, they're like, well, I'm cool. I put in my work. Meanwhile, the other partner's like, well, great. I've had 3 toddlers all day. I've cooked. I've cleaned. I've done laundry. Now I got to get dinner done. And, oh, by the way, I got to feed the kids, get them in the tub, get them ready for bed, get your stuff ready, get you ready to go out the door. And then I get to go to bed. And then I get to wake up and do it again.
Dang, you said that list fast.
Man, it gave me a little bit of anxiety hearing all that stuff.
But, like, I did this stay-at-home mom thing for, like, 9 months when my daughter was little, my firstborn. Mm-hmm. And I give full credit to their dad, whereas he did not treat me that way. Like, he was still very helpful at home. Like, he was very helpful with our daughter. He still helped clean and do a lot of other stuff. So I didn't feel that.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking in hindsight, like, if that's what I really had to do when I was at home, if my expectation was not only do I want you to be home with this newborn all day,
right,
I want you to cook, clean, get all the laundry done, do all the cleaning, yada, 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 I would have been out of my mind.
Yeah.
But that is the expectation for a lot of stay-at-home partners. Yep. And I don't think that it's fair or feasible. And the person in this video even went as far as to say it's abusive to think about that, to think that just because you have a stay-at-home partner that they should be solely responsible for all of that work.
By themselves.
You just got to put in your 40 hours and come home.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the stay-at-home person is up from 5:30 in the morning until 11 p.m. at night, and they just got to go do it all over again.
Or even worse, get done with your 40 hours and then go to the bar for happy hour. So you
And
still
have your
coming
fun.
in at 8, 9
Yes.
o'clock. Yeah, that's
Meanwhile,
that's
that
true.
person has been at home by themselves.
So they're experiencing burnout.
Yes,
that
but
can
no
also
one acknowledges that.
that can also contribute to
Mental health issues.
No, that wasn't what I was
Health.
gonna say. I was gonna talk more about like physical appearance, because I know that comes up a lot. Like women will say, "How do you expect me to maintain my appearance and continue to look
you
good
let
for you?"
yourself go, and it's like, well, when can I go to the gym? When can I go to the salon? When do I have time?
Right.
And back to the money conversation. A lot of times it's like, well, I can't afford to like have you in the salon every 6 weeks. I can't afford to have you in the nail shop every 2 weeks. Like, there's those conversations, but the same thing goes. Like, and I know this is more common for women, but women having babies, that it takes an incredible toll on our bodies. Like carrying children is it's a lot.
Yeah, it definitely. It ages
And then we're
women.
expected to snap back. And
Right.
if we're stay-at-home moms, we're also expected to now have this newborn, still cook, still clean, still. And then our partners often will come home with this, like, well, I mean,
'Cause you'll
she didn't
see-
lose the baby weight, and
Right,
her
you'll see
hair's
women's
never done,
hair.
and she looks
Some women's
crazy.
hair will turn gray after giving
hair
birth.
will
Like
fall
they
out.
they age.
Their hair will fall out.
Definitely.
Do you know?
That
I'll give
calcium
you
deficiency is crazy.
Oh,
when
it
you
goes
having a
even
baby.
deeper than that. Do you know that if you have an underlying thyroid condition, which I'll give you some information, before you get pregnant, it is almost 80% likely that that pregnancy will trigger the thyroid issue to then become exacerbated. And that means your hair can fall out, your teeth can fall out. You can either gain significant weight or lose significant weight, anxiety, depression, all those things.
Yeah.
So again, like that falls often, because it is typically women who stay home more, onto women. And then these partners have these crazy expectations.
You even hear in relationships where people have a little bit more money, where like women will say, "I'll have a baby, but you gotta
Here's what you have to do.
yeah, you gotta, I need breast implants, or I need, a body makeover."
Push
like all of those
presents
things
are now a new thing that I've never heard about. But I guess now women who are getting ready to like deliver, their partners will get them like delivery gifts, almost called a push present, where they'll get like, for instance, one of these moms, she wanted like this really cool stroller. That was her push present. Another one wanted to be able to go on a vacation together before the baby was born. That was her push present.
But you gotta have bread to do it.
That's what I'm saying. But these are like different conversations. But when you look in lower socioeconomic groups, while the issues are still the same, the conversations are completely different.
Yeah, because the money ain't there.
It's not. Well,
Money
most women don't have the opportunity to stay home.
That's
so
real.
then the conversation is, now we have this new baby. You got 6 weeks because we don't
Look,
do.
y'all better start moving grandma in the house. We gotta look.
A
We got.
lot
We gotta
of
look
other
at these
cultures
other
do that,
communities.
and
We
it's
gotta look at these other
incredibly
communities.
helpful.
But y'all want to be INDE, or maybe I'm showing my age. But y'all want to be independent. Better move grandma in the house. But I know time is expiring. I feel like we gotta bring that conversation. We're gonna push that one forward to another episode, because that's definitely a deep one we should dive into.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and wrap it up for tonight, because I feel like this was great dialogue. Let's do some social media shout outs real quick as we wrap it up. The Facebook group, I'm coming back, y'all. I'll be out of Facebook jail in 11 days.
Hopefully for
I
good.
promise you. I'm coming back. Follow me on Snapchat. Until then, Easy SR, Easy Senior. Hit me up. Like my stuff, subscribe my stuff, and jump on the YouTube channel, man. We need more subscribers on YouTube. So go to Luv and War Podcast on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe. Run the algorithm up.
Yes.
Anything you want to shout out before we get out of here?
I mean, it's all the same per usual. All my social media is the same. It's Cubana Alana across all platforms: TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. So find me, follow me. And again, if
They're
I
tearing
happen
up
to
stuff
friend
back here.
you on any app, I'm just growing my pages and trying to get better insights.
She's not a crazy ex, y'all. She's a crazy
I'm not.
future ex. All right. So as per usual,
I'm not even going to address the way he just tried to slide that in.
as per usual
You're so
in today's
toxic.
society,
Ugh.
where we can't stand to be together. Or how do I say that?
See,
It's so long, it's so
Can't
late.
stand to be together, hate to be apart.
We hate to be apart. It's Luv and War Podcast, y'all. We out of here.